Imagine a person whose every morning begins with a royal court employee squeezing exactly 1 inch of toothpaste onto his brush. A person who inherited around $500 million and did not pay a single cent in tax on it. A person who is personally considered merely a multimillionaire, but who actually controls a system with assets worth hundreds of billions and trillions of dollars in scale. This is not Elon Musk, not Bezos, and not even an Arab sheikh. This is the King of the United Kingdom, Charles III. You are on the channel Luxury Life, and today we will look into the life of a man who is not officially listed as a trillionaire, but lives as if the entire planet is his personal VIP resort. Luxury Life. An empire that cannot be calculated. When Charles III ascended the throne in September 2022, he received not just a crown and a title, he gained access to a financial machine that economists have been trying to calculate for decades, and every time, they give up. Officially, the wealth of the British royal family is estimated at around $28 billion. This includes palaces, art collections, jewelry, lands, and entire real estate portfolios. But here is the trick. A huge part of this empire is listed not as his personal property, but as assets of the crown. The crown estate, historic lands, the coastal strip, the seabed, income from wind farms, tourist flow to castles, all of this forms a vast monetary ecosystem where the personal and the state are so intertwined that drawing a clear line is practically impossible. Hence the expression trillionaire life. Charles cannot simply take and sell Buckingham Palace at an auction, but he lives inside a system that, in terms of scale and capability, is larger than the fortunes of most dollar billionaires. How much does one king cost? If you strip away all the royal glamour and count only what is attributed to the personal wealth of Charles III, the figures are still staggering. According to Rich Lists, by 2025, his personal fortune is estimated at around £640 million. That is about $850 million. And this is already more than his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, had, whose wealth was estimated in the region of 370 to 500 million pounds. But then the most interesting part begins. Journalists and analysts who count not only the official assets, but also those from which Charles derives personal benefit, arrive at much higher figures. Extended estimates approach 1.8 billion pounds, approximately $2.3 billion. And here is how, according to various estimates, this personal treasury breaks down. About 142 million pounds, investments, stocks, bonds, accumulated income from the duchies. Approximately 330 million pounds, private residences such as Balmoral, around 80 million, and Sandringham, around 250 million. About 27 million pounds, racehorses. Approximately 100 million pounds, the philatelic collection, simply put, stamps worth more than apartments in central London. About 24 million pounds, a private art collection. Approximately 533 million pounds, jewelry, which many countries might record in their gold and foreign currency reserves. About 6.3 million pounds, cars, from classics to executive limousines. The difference between the modest $850 million and more than $2 billion lies in what is considered truly his and what is owned by the crown, used by the king. But for us, something else is more important. This is a man whose single stamp collection is worth as much as an entire skyscraper in an expensive district of a major metropolis. "64 years of waiting, the most patient heir in the world." Charles III went down in history not only for his wealth, but also for his waiting. He became king at the age of 73, having spent over 60 years as the heir apparent. Imagine, you are told that you will one day become the main one, and you wait not 5 years, not 10, but 6 decades, all the while studying, working, earning, and building your own financial base. While the world changed and entire empires crumbled, Charles turned the Duchy of Cornwall from an ancient land fund into a multi-layered investment portfolio. Even before he became king, his fortune was estimated at around $100 million, and the annual income from the duchy at 20 to 30 million. Income came from rent, agriculture, commercial projects, and ecological initiatives. In essence, it was a family business on the scale of a small country, which the Prince of Wales had been developing for decades while the whole world considered him just the heir. tax-free inheritance, when the state becomes the most generous notary. When Queen Elizabeth II died in 2022, Charles received not only a title, he inherited assets worth approximately $500 million, private estates, collections, jewelry, family valuables. Any ordinary Briton in such a situation would face an inheritance tax of up to 40%. But for the monarch, a special rule applies. The transfer of wealth from monarch to monarch is not subject to tax. In other words, no multi-million-dollar checks to the tax authorities, no selling off assets to cover taxes. The fortune simply moves from one heir to another, as if it were not hundreds of millions, but a suitcase of clothes. If you had inherited an ordinary apartment in London, the state would not let you off so easily. Charles, however, received $500 million and continues to live in a world where laws are written so that his family wealth hardly diminishes with the change of generations. Royal routine, toothpaste by the ruler, and personal toilet paper. Luxury in the style of Charles III is not only palaces and crowns, it is also the complete absence of the everyday trivialities that any ordinary person has to think about. His morning usually begins around 7 to 8 a.m. Breakfast, homemade bread, fresh fruit, juices, organic products. Everything is prepared to align with his long-standing obsession with ecology and conscious consumption. But then begins a level of comfort that, even for the world of luxury, sounds like a challenge. A servant squeezes exactly 1 inch of toothpaste onto his toothbrush. When traveling, he brings his own set of toilet paper and a box of his usual organic products. Every little detail, from the pillow to the glass, is prepared in advance so that not a single micro moment throws him off his routine. For most people, this looks strange or amusing. But here, a different principle applies. If you are the head of a monarchy, the system's task is to remove any minor burden from your life, so that you can spend your energy only on what is truly important for the state, and on what makes your day as comfortable as possible. A day that never ends. After the morning rituals, work begins. From around 10 a.m., official meetings, receptions, trips, and of course, that famous red box with documents containing state papers for the king every day. Charles is known for often skipping lunch so as not to interrupt his work rhythm. Sometimes in the evening, tea, but the real marathon begins at night. He can sit at his desk writing letters until 4 in the morning. Addresses, responses, personal letters to politicians, religious leaders, charitable organizations. This is not just a nice image of a hardworking monarch. It is a habit honed over decades of analyzing problems until he finds at least some solution or answer. Luxury is luxury, but his schedule is more like that of an S-tier entrepreneur who simultaneously runs a family corporation, a symbolic empire, and his own reputation in front of millions of people. The King's Body, Sports, Cancer, and 533 Public Engagements. In 2025, Charles III is around 76 years old, and yet he trains twice a day. His daily minimum includes squats, pull-ups on the bar, strength and endurance exercises for the upper body. This is not just fitness for photos. It is a necessity that allows him to withstand hundreds of official events per year, flights, standing receptions, parades, and multi-hour ceremonies, all while undergoing cancer treatment, which he was going through. In just 1 year, he carried out around 533 official engagements, and, according to statistics, he became the busiest member of the royal family, even outpacing Princess Anne, who for years was called the court's main workaholic. And all of this, parallel to regular therapy, meetings with world leaders, visits to Italy, Canada, Poland, and dozens of trips around Great Britain. If this were in the style of a Mr. Beast video, it would look like a challenge. Can you carry out more than 500 events in a year while undergoing cancer treatment? $500 million a year, the real cost of the monarchy. Behind all this schedule, luxury, and rituals stands a vast financial machine. The official expenditure of the royal court in one of the recent financial years amounted to approximately £106.7 million. Net expenditure after additional income, around $85.2 million. But if you add together security, protection, logistics, flights, hidden items, and costs that do not appear under the palace line item, the real cost of the monarchy to the country approaches £510 million per year, £500 million, for maintaining palaces, castles, and royal residences, paying for travel, receptions, visits, and ceremonies, supporting a staff of hundreds of people, preserving the image of the monarchy as working, modern, and yet eternal. For some, this sounds like madness. For others, it is the price for the brand called the British monarchy, which attracts millions of tourists and billions of dollars worth of attention to the country. Palaces, renovations, and the old train that had to be scrapped. A separate item, real estate and infrastructure. In 1 year, over £41 million were spent on maintaining the royal residences alone. The grand project to renovate Buckingham Palace is estimated at £369 million, and it is already about 72% complete. Around £266 million has been spent. The main points of this empire: Buckingham Palace, the administrative heart of the monarchy, reopening the East Wing for tours. Windsor Castle, the country home where the king retreats on weekends. Even roof repairs costing tens of thousands of pounds are done using recycled lead. Balmoral and Sandringham, private estates that he already maintains from his personal funds. Travel, another line item where money literally disappears into thin air. Spending on official flights and trips reached £4.7 million in a year, and increased by almost 12% due to international tours and major events. At one point, they even had to scrap the royal train, which was 156 years old. Its maintenance became more expensive than the infrequent trips made on it. Even the monarchy has moments when the finances say, "Enough romance, now we count the money." Number 1. An army of 539 people, when luxury is also a staff. For this entire system to work, the king needs not just staff, he needs a whole mini corporation of people living in 24/7 mode. Personnel costs reach up to £34 million a year, about $29.9 million. Salaries, pensions, insurance, approximately $4.1 million. Agency staff, training, recruitment, in total, around 539 full-time equivalent positions. These are the people who maintain the palaces and parks, manage the schedule, protocol, and logistics, service receptions, the kitchen, the wardrobe, ensure the entire royal machine operates like a perfect Swiss mechanism. And on top of all this, personal luxury. About 60 bespoke suits, each costing up to £5,000, about 50 pairs of handmade shoes, shirts at approximately £1,000 each. In ordinary life, this would look like absurd extravagance. In the world of Charles III, it is the standard corporate kit for the head of one of the most recognizable monarchies in history. The king and other earthly bigwigs, why he isn't the richest, but his system is insane. If we compare personal wealth, Charles III is far from the richest monarch on the planet. The King of Saudi Arabia, the Sultan of Brunei, and other rulers of oil states are valued in the tens of billions of dollars. Prince Hans Adam II of Liechtenstein owns a fortune of around 12 to 13 billion. Prince Albert II of Monaco, approximately 1 billion. The Scandinavian kings, on the other hand, look almost modest. The Swedish monarch, for example, is estimated to be worth around 70 million. The Norwegian around 30 million. Against this backdrop, Charles's personal $850 million do not seem so cosmic, but the game changes when we look not only at his portfolio, but at the entire system he controls. The royal family, in a broad sense, is considered the largest landowner in the world. Billions of acres of land across the planet are under its control. Together with the crown estate, this entire network of holdings and land rights far exceeds the size of the empires of even the wealthiest private families and religious structures. This is not money that can simply be cashed in, but it is that scale of control that turns the king into a person whose signature and who gets which seabed plot for a wind farm can generate billions a year. The Crown Estate, the company that no one owns but everyone gets money from. At the center of this system is the Crown Estate. Legally, it is not Charles's wallet, but assets that the monarch owns by right of the crown, but not as a private investor. Practically, it looks like this. The Crown Estate has a real estate and land portfolio worth approximately tens of billions of dollars. It includes prime parts of London like Regent Street, agricultural land, forests, almost half of the United Kingdom's coastal strip, and a significant part of the seabed. It is precisely from leasing seabed areas for offshore wind farms that the Crown Estate makes over £1 billion in net profit per year. And here's the key point. All the profit from the crown estate officially goes to the treasury. In return, the monarchy receives the sovereign grant, a fixed percentage of this income plus additional agreements. In one period, this grant was raised to £132.1 million a year. That is 53% more than the previous year. Formally, it all looks like a deal. We, the monarchy, give the state all the profit from this giant empire, and in return, we receive a guaranteed, predictable, and ever-increasing budget for our work and life. Not a private business, not a purely state structure. It is a gray area, an ideal hybrid where wealth serves both the symbol, the budget, and the specific person who wears the crown. How the monarchy traded power for privileges. It is impossible to understand the wealth of Charles III without looking at history. Once upon a time, British kings were absolute rulers. Lands, taxes, the army, everything was subject to their will. But after the Glorious Revolution of 1688, the monarchy began to gradually lose direct political power and transform into a constitutional one, subordinate to parliament. Instead of direct power, something else appeared, a series of historical deals in which kings gave up part of their income to the state, but retained rights to lands, privileges, and special financial conditions. That is why today, the monarch cannot block an act of parliament. Officially, he stands above politics and has no right to openly interfere. At the same time, he gains access to a system where taxes, inheritance, holdings, and income operate under rules that are simply inaccessible to ordinary citizens. Modern kings do not conquer new territories, but they know how to turn ancient estates into profitable projects, duchies into investment funds, and ancient privileges into very concrete financial flows. The king between faiths, eros, and skepticism. Charles III is not just a rich monarch stuck in the past. He is trying to integrate a centuries-old system into the 21st century. In 2023, his coronation took place, the first in 7 decades. The ceremony combined ancient rituals, gold, robes, religious rites, and, at the same time, elements emphasizing modern Britain with its multinational and secular society. In 2025, he became the first head of the Church of England to publicly pray together with the Pope, almost 500 years after England's break with Rome. This gesture became a signal. The monarchy wants to look like a unifying force, not a symbol of division. But in parallel, the world is changing. Caribbean countries such as Jamaica are speaking louder and louder about wanting to become republics and remove the British monarch as head of state. Within Great Britain itself, questions are growing. Why do we need £500 million a year for the royal family when people are counting every penny during a crisis? A headline: new tests, reviews, debates about transparency, reports on who earns what from palaces, visits, and the royal brand. The king, who manages billion-dollar assets, is forced every day to prove that he is not just a VIP tenant of history, but a man who gives the country something more than expensive parades. Wealth versus burden. What a man who has his toothpaste squeezed for him feels. It is easy to look at the life of Charles III as an ideal scenario. Not a single mortgage, personal palaces and castles, a fortune in the hundreds of millions, access to a system with assets in the tens and hundreds of billions, staff who think about every little detail for you. But Charles himself once very honestly described the moment when he realized that he would never be an ordinary person. He said that this realization comes in the most ghastly, inexorable way. You are born into a world where you have everything, and at the same time, no right to refuse. No opportunity to say, I don't want to be king, I just want to live somewhere by the sea and ride a bicycle. In his 70s, with a diagnosis that breaks many, he continues to carry out hundreds of events a year, write letters at night, train twice a day, and live under the lenses of cameras around the world. His life is not just gold and robes. It is also a system in which any mistake you make becomes world news, and any gesture is a signal to millions of people. Charles III's trillionaire life is not just a record for luxury. It is a story about how the monarchy learned to survive, trading power for privileges, political influence for financial mechanisms, and absolute monarchy for a brand that generates income for both the country and those who wear the crown. If you are interested in the world of people for whom hundreds of millions are not a dream, but a starting point, subscribe to Luxury Life and watch other stories on your screen. There are even more palaces, crazy fortunes, and lives at a level that most people cannot even imagine.